Warning. Unlike the other episodes, this one will contain explicit content.
My name is Arael Aron Ra. I am the Southwest Regional Director of American Atheists.
As I've told you, by the airing of this, I will have come out. To all my friends and family. Well, at the taping of this, I have not. So I'm very conscious of the climate that I'm coming out of. And the climate that I'm coming out of is one in which, yes, people may not know what this actually says. They may not understand the picture it actually paints. But what they will say is that they do know that what this represents to them is true, and it gives them hope, and it makes a difference in their life. Not only them as people who sit in the pews or the chairs or attend church or pray or not pray, but they believe the same thing about the person preaching this. The pastors and ministers that I personally know and have had conversations with and I've offered my own criticisms, in my opinion, have come off as still holding the position that what is inspired here is true or inspired by God. So I think if we are going to have some empathy or sympathy from people who might ever hear conversations like the one you and I are having now, or any other atheist or educator, activist, etc., anybody that's drawing scrutiny to this, that scrutiny might not be heard if we don't speak to the condition which makes them accept this as truth. And I don't think the right way is to just say, hey, you're idiots, and you should just read this and know that it's wrong. I don't think that's the right way, because I don't think people will actually hear you after that. I don't think they'll follow you after that. So how do we approach people who believe a lie willingly? Because you and I will see that as willingly believing a lie. How do we approach people like that and enable them to change their mind? What do we say?
Well, I had a coworker that I very much liked. He was I'm a humanist, and religious people can also be humanists. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily atheist. It means that you believe that we find human solutions to real world problems. Basically real world solutions, real world problems, rather than turning to prayer. Now, while he didn't do that, he genuinely loved humanity. He seemed like a really sweet, decent guy. I mean, you can draw a stereotype about the evil preacher and the evil, corrupt priest and all of the things all of the horrible things that they do. But there are a lot of people who are attracted to Christianity because they've been taught that God equals good. And they bought the image that that the preacher is the one that's the most moral, and so everybody loves the preacher when he shows up because he's the nice and good one, And so it's easier not to do drugs or not to drink or anything like that because you've now adopted this persona, and it's easier to play that when you've got all of these character traits with it. And so a lot of people who are genuinely good will be attracted to religion because they don't see this dark side. That for whatever reason that we mentioned before about, like a political biases, maybe you just can't see that. So I worked with this guy for a number of years, and I tried not to bring up the creationism versus evolution argument that I specialize in, because it really doesn't matter in his scheme. And so there's no reason to attack him because he's not, he's bought a lie, but that's not what he's selling. He's not about fooling people with creationism. He was about being a compassionate person and helping people in need. I'm all about that, so let him be. But there was a time when he confronted me with a question. He says, I've just been wondering about this for years, and so I have this question about how can you believe in evolution when there's all this proof of creation? I had to warn you, you did ask the question. I'm going to give you as short as possible, the answer. And so I listed out a number of the facts that we know to be true, that we can prove to be true of evolution, and a handful of things we can prove to be false about creationism. And I said that that's not even the important thing. The important thing is that the nothing that we can show that is true about creation. It doesn't even matter that there's also nothing you can show to be false about evolution. That's immaterial. We would expect that you'd be able to find false things about evolution occasionally. But the big issue is not the lies of creationism, it's the complete void of the very thing that you said there was so much of. The absolutely no evidence of creation. That's the biggest thing. Because then there's no truth to it. It doesn't matter that there's also a hell of a lot of lies. Because you can have lies with a truth. But the void, there's no truth. That's the problem. And then there was another problem that he had. He wouldn't deal with that. We had a political difference because we ran into each other and I said something positive about Bernie. And of course he's been programmed to have certain political positions that he doesn't reconsider. And that's the funny thing is when you don't reconsider your position, that maybe it's wrong. I've had to reposition myself a number of times in my life when I was taught to believe something, and then later I discovered that that's not right at all. And then I've done it a few times. With religion, for example, I came to a point where I no longer believed in God, but then what else is there? And then I found myself, rather than just going straight to atheist, I went into a neo-pagan stage where I start exploring different religious philosophies and everything because I think there's some truth to it. And then eventually I found that I've been wrong about a lot of different things. I hope it doesn't continue to happen, but if there's something I'm wrong about now, I want to find out about that and correct it as quickly as I can. And now this guy believed in prayer. And my granddaughter had leukemia, and he prayed. I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate the thought, but I've noticed the prayers don't take effect until the chemo starts flowing. And the prayer failed. She ended up having a relapse. So he prayed again. If God already knows what you're asking for, and believe me, there's plenty of believers in my family that have already been praying. It's not like God will listen to you and he won't listen to us. There's plenty of people that they're wishing their hearts out on the star they believe in that this little girl's going to make it. And then there was another relapse. She got through chemo the first time and the second time. But you know what the odds are to go through chemo again? But you know why? Because evolution. When you bombard these cells with certain poisons, you end up getting a new strain that is resistant to that poison. So every next round you do is less successful until it has no effect at all. And that's where we found ourselves. And so my friend who was a minister, he's trying to be sympathetic. He's trying to be human. He's trying to connect with me on a human level. But he's giving me horse shit when I have a real world problem. And he's giving me fairy tales as a response. Imagine, and I tried to tell him this. I said, I like you. I all this respect for you. But imagine that a 4-year-old child realizes that you're having a terrible, terrible time in your life, and she's going to help you. She's going to write a letter to Santa on your behalf. Now, you know that she sincerely believes that, and you know it's a sincere thought. She thinks she's helping. But does that make you feel better? Now imagine that 4-year-old child is a 40-year-old fucking man, and he's telling you the same goddamn thing, and he's failed every other time. How much more patience are you going to have for that fairy tale? And he never brought it up to me again. And I actually had a meeting with with Children's Hospital here in Dallas. It was supposed to be other people there, but the other people couldn't make it. And so somehow I end up meeting with all the chaplains. And they said that they wanted to meet with an atheist because they have more and more atheist families. We're fully a quarter of the country now. And when they go through this thing, they notice that the little platitudes, little slogans that would make believers feel good, not only do they not work with unbelievers, they actually raise outrage. And so they wanted to talk to an atheist about what do we say to people in these situations to help them. And I said, you've got a challenge. Because if you dare tell me that she's in a better place now, or that she's an angel now and looking down on me, I am going to be outraged because you're lying to me. And that's insulting on top of everything that I have to go through. There is no thing you can tell me. There is no lie you can say. All you can do is, and all we all really need is just a human connection. And sometimes there are tragedies you can't do anything about. But just, a hand on the shoulder to know that you care, sometimes that's enough. And that's all you got.
What's the condition of your granddaughter presently?
She died at 3. She was diagnosed at 4 months. And so she lived her entire life basically in Children's Hospital. She would get out for a few months and go back in with another relapse. And, she was wonderful, she was beautiful, she was smart. And one of my fondest memories of her was we were in a Chinese restaurant, and she sees other people eating chopsticks. I have an integrated, semi-Asian family, and so we eat with chopsticks frequently. And my granddaughter watched us eat with chopsticks, and I could see her positioning. She's looking at the way everybody else is holding it. She was 2.5, and she's putting the sticks in her fingers, watching how everyone else does it to make sure she does it right. Like, that kid is a genius. I know adults who can't who can't piece this together. She's really remarkable. And if I wasn't already an atheist, people would say, well, that would make you. Yeah, you want to talk about God's design, and go ahead and tell me that God needed another angel. Let's see how that plays out. So, I was actually fortunate that I was inoculated, so that I didn't have to go through that God-hating stage where you still believe in God and you're wondering why the fuck did you do this? Because there's no justification for this. I was already an atheist for completely defensible, scientific-based, rational, and philosophical reasons prior to that. I think my daughter was 2, fortunately.
Let's talk about something interesting. What you say is true in that in here there are no facts, then why are there such things as conversions by people who are otherwise healthy, cognitively and physically?
How do people say they believe this when they don't really believe that? They know they don't believe that, but they're going to say they believe that so that they can have the family camaraderie.